Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and today I'm joined by Jerry Taylor. Jerry, fresh from Lazio on Wednesday night, Chris Sutton on Friday night. How are you? You were washed out on Saturday. You couldn't make it because you were washed out on Saturday like a lot of Celtic fans. It was horrific, wasn't it?
It's been a roller coaster of emotions the past week. So we'll start with Lazio. Do you know what? It's a great occasion. It was brilliant. Absolutely heartbreaking now. Where I was sat, you know where I was sat. So right beside, I was on the aisle. So you've got the concrete steps obviously going down. See when Parma scored, mate, I'm cutting about those steps like the Joker, dancing about, cheering. And then I didn't have a smile on my face after that. Do you know something? We went from absolute euphoric to heartbreak. But see, when they were on the attack at the end, it was as if the whole ground just knew it was coming. It was almost in slow motion as well. And I'm ashamed to say it, my butt was off the seat straight away. And then I left. So because it was the one way with the Lazio fans, I was gridlocked trying to get out because I'd take the car up. And it took me like 45 minutes to get by the Emirates. And then my phone cut out, so I didn't have a sat-nav. So it was about half midnight. I'm cutting about Rutherglen, going round in circles, trying to find a bypass. And the whole time still in shock with that Lazio game. So I must have got home about 1:30 down to Girvan. So that was an experience. But I got to wear my new top for the first time, wearing it again today. Can I just say, I think it's the finest piece of clothing ever made, ever known to mankind. It's so comfy as well. So Lazio was, and then Chris Sutton picked us right back up again. What a man.
Even though he's not a fan of your goalkeeping ability, Jerry.
Do you know something? That's a bucket list to get insulted by Chris Sutton. And God bless the big guy. He must have been knackered as well because he works so hard, just talking about his schedule. Then you get folk like me coming in going, how's it going, big man? Can I touch you? Can I shake your hand? Can you do this video for me? So God bless him. And well done to you all. What another great event put on and another one off the bucket list. Brilliant.
That picture of me standing next to him, everybody thinks I'm tiny, but Chris is a big lad. Chris is a big lad. He is. Aye. And as you say, very accommodating. And he had travelled up. He travelled straight back down, hence the reason it was a sharp exit. And he was back up the road on the Sunday to do his gig in Paisley. So, yeah, a hard-working individual indeed. Now, you were talking there about Lazio and the feelings and the emotions after it, Jerry, right? And you said something that actually prompted me to bring up the old Las Vegas album from 2011. It was called Euphoric Heartbreak. Euphoric Heartbreak. That's what it was like. 2011. Yeah. I mean, the guys have been kicking about for some time. Their debut album came out back in 2008, and their most recent in 2021. I think they are working on new material just now. But James Allen, former professional footballer James Allen, will be playing for the Celtic Select on Sunday at James McGrory Park. I have been getting messages all weekend. They want another announcement, and another one. And I've got some, but I'm not putting them out just yet. They will come out. More players will be announced.
Listen, mate, see when you sent... So I can say this, I won't give too much away, but Paul John sent me out, basically, what would you call it, an itinerary of the day. So basically, where we're all meeting, right, it's like proper match day vibes. So it was where we're all meeting, who's all going to be there. It's almost like all covert. That's when it sunk in for me, and I went, I'm going to be with all these legends, famous people.
On a team coach.
And a team coach. And the thing is, I'm going to look like I've won a competition.
Superb. You've just got to lap it up.
I know, but then I was like, 800 people are going to watch it, and it's live stream, and that was the point. My backside started eating my couch, but I'm buzzing for it, mate.
Nerves are good. This is a thing, Jerry. I keep saying this. You know, a footballer, I can't remember who said to me that he got concerned about footballers who didn't get nerves because he started wondering if it meant enough to them, you know, in the dressing room before they went into a game. So nerves is good. I get nervous every single day coming on to the Acsom bulletin, furiously writing my notes, making sure I've got everything noted down. The live events are the same experience. You're going on to a live audience. What a live audience it was, by the way. Thanks, everybody, for coming along. I'm just going to reiterate again, Jerry, and I'll never tire of saying it. We raised £3,000 for wee Jamie Tierney with one jersey and a frame. The jersey was a cracker, by the way. It was the 1995 style that was worn by Tommy Burns' side. It was fully signed. It was a match-worn jersey. And it was presented to an anonymous listener of A Celtic State of Mind upon his retirement. So his pals all clubbed together, gave him this as a retirement gift. Don't know how they got it. And he thought all these years later it was appropriate to give it to us for wee Jamie. I didn't think for a minute we'd raise £3,000, but there was two people in the audience that night, Jerry, who, by the way, I think it would have gone on and on and on, and we had to kind of...
Really?
I think so. It was incredible. £3,000 going to wee Jamie, and we'll get that transferred as soon as it drops, which is fantastic. We are going to be talking a wee bit about Lazio because I think it feeds into the weekend's game, and individual performances as well. And perhaps surprisingly, I'm going to start with Louis Palma, right? Now, by the way, if we do lose Jerry at any point, it's a charger issue and you'll come back on your phone. It's not that you're going to be bored in my chat, I hope. Louis Palma, here we go. During the recruitment of the summer, the transfer window, were we critical? I think we were a little bit critical. We didn't go over the top about the transfer strategy and the fact that, we wanted... It's not about big names. We wanted people who instantly go into the team, who have got the experience, who can instantly make an impact in the team. And I think what you've got there is you couple that with some players who are coming, who have got the promise, who you can develop, who maybe in a season or 2 seasons will then start getting bedded into the team. And I just felt that the recruitment in the last window, Jerry, was far more geared towards that than the instant impact player. But what we've got in Louis Palma is a player who, over the last 3 games, I think has come back from a fairly disappointing debut against Feyenoord. First start against Feyenoord, rather. And then he has followed that up with 3 very, very good performances. He scores a goal against Motherwell. It looked as though it was going to be the winner. Unfortunately, they pulled a goal back. We had to score another. He scored that goal, the euphoric heartbreak goal that you described against Lazio, and it was chopped off. And then he scores another cracking goal at the weekend. And I'm going to ask a question because at the beginning of the season, I highlighted 3 guys. It was O'Reilly, Hatate and Abada. And I felt that Rodgers was really going to enhance these 3 players. Abada, of course, is injured. Palma stepped up. He stepped up even though there are some good options on the wings. And I think that when you look at some of the comments made by Rodgers, he said he doesn't expect players to fit straight away. He talks about the different culture and climate that the players have to obviously get to grips with. But I think this is as close to straight away as you could imagine from a summer signing. He's been brilliant the last 3 games.
I'm really excited by him. I think I said it previously. I was always looking forward to seeing him play. And see with the Feyenoord thing, this just might be me that I've got a bad eye for some games, but I couldn't see it when folk were saying he had a bad game. For me, like he was trying to dribble. He had the 3rd best dribble rate after the first game in the Champions League, and I thought with a wee bit of rust, but I thought he did all right. Might just be me not watching it. Sometimes I watch through rose-tinted specs if I really like a player. I think see the goal, mate. His goal. There's hardly any backlift to that. The ball's almost stopped dead when he's hit it.
It's the backlift. It's the backlift I'm impressed with. Yeah, because you think it's too close to his body. The first opportunity to strike looked like more of a chance, and then obviously that's the reason why Hatate's not offside. Of course, the ball basically ricochets off you. Hatate, he's not what would be classed as active within the manner of the play. It's just ricocheted off him. It comes back to Palma when you think to yourself, right, you're going to have to find some space here. But no, he strikes a second time, and it's a brilliant goal. He celebrates. He's then having to go through that process again of waiting on the VAR check. He must be thinking, what have I signed for here? What game of football is this in Scotland? And we get the goal. And I just feel that in the last 3 games, he's done a thing that we'll talk about when it comes to skills, whereby he has probably been sitting there after Yang's first couple of games where Yang looked pretty pretty good. He looked pretty decent. He's sitting there alongside the likes of Yang, and James Forrest is part of that discussion. Obviously, Tillio's going to be coming back into the equation, and he is now a first starter, and that he's a first team starter every single week at the moment on that kind of form. He looks as though he's got a bit of strength about him. He's a strong runner, isn't he, Palmer? Great technique, and he was involved in a couple of moves in that game there at the weekend that were just brilliant to watch. There was a fluidity to the play, and he was part of that, almost as if he'd been part of the team for a good couple of seasons, Jerry. There was an understanding, and I just think that, we did caveat my comments at the beginning of the season by saying that 2 or 3 of these guys may turn into absolute superstars for us. Well, it looks as though Palmer's tried to grab that one, and is running with it, thankfully. Obviously, we go right in, after that momentum, we go right into the international break, which is in many ways unfortunate because you just want another game. You want them to keep it up. The fact that we're going into international break obviously means that plenty of Celtic fans can watch the live stream of the Rock game that we're obviously going to be live streaming on the day. First time I've ever done a live stream of a game. So, in terms of the actual systems, etc., it's going to be very much like this, but we're going to have to run it from a scaffolding temporary gantry, which is some distance away from the electricity supply. So obviously certain devices, etc., will be purchased to ensure that the signal is good enough. But I'm really looking forward to the live stream, Jerry. You're going to obviously be on that for part of the game. And we know quite a few of the players, but I might have hinted to you that there's 1 or 2 others to come as well. So keep an eye on the socials. Louis Palmer, I think he's bedded himself into Brendan Rodgers' start 11. And that links us into talking about Brendan and what Brendan can do to a player. And I made my prediction. I made 2 predictions at the beginning of the season. The first one was the 3 players that Brendan was really going to tap into and really bring into a level that's, better than they have been operating at. And the 3 guys aren't the ones in the tagline, because Scales, for me, was on another list. He was on a list of 10 players that I thought would leave Celtic.
And I want to look at that list of 10, because that was quite prominent in pre-seasons. Where are we at with that one?
Well, Stephen Welsh has signed a new contract, so he's going nowhere. And Scales has turned into, what were we calling him? Scalacci. Leo Scalacci. He's turned into a player who, there are, James French, for example, some of our contributors who did see it. I didn't see it. I've got to admit, I did not see the player that we are now witnessing in a Celtic jersey. I wasn't ridiculing him. I wasn't saying he can't play football, but I didn't see this happening, Jerry.
He was the last choice, even behind Kobayashi and everyone. But he's got a swagger about him as well now, hasn't he? Like,
I like that.
It's as if, the game there, it's as if he felt like that he knew it was his place now, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you're right. So he's not playing like the competition winner that obviously you referred to earlier on.
I'll be on Sunday.
He's thinking, I'm here on merit. I deserve to be here. And it's a confidence, and I love that. But again, people sometimes go on about, that line between confidence and arrogance. And I often say, well, in order to go into a park and play in front of 60,000 fans, right, or to go out and play in a Champions League game, there needs to be something, right? And sometimes I think it is verging on arrogance. But even if it is, as long as you manage it to a degree, it's like ego. It's like everybody's got ego. I mean, in order for me to think 3.5 years ago that anybody would want to see my mug on this screen, to talk about Celtic, there must be ego involved in that. And I don't think I'm egotistical, but there must be an element of it, Jerry. Like, to get on a stage, you're involved in theatre. To get on a stage, there must be an element of ego and a wee bit of overconfidence at times. I think you need it, surely.
Of course, mate. And it's the thing, as long as you keep that on the pitch and it doesn't affect you outside, that way. So keep it on the stage. Mate, the reason that I'm confident on the stage or doing things like this, it's like you go up there and that's your chance just to feed your ego. Every single actor, and I don't care. Some of them say, I do it for the love of this, the love of that. We do it because we're show-offs. That's why we wanted to do it. We wanted to seek attention, all right? Or we wouldn't have done it. And the money is good if you ever make it, but you can't in this industry. But as long as you don't start cutting about thinking you're Robert De Niro, You know what I mean? Just keep it on the pitch. And I think Scales, he looks like he's got a good head about him. I've only seen maybe one interview with him, but that was enough. Got a good head, getting a call up for Ireland as well. I think he'll come on leaps and bounds with them too. Great to see. Going back to you saying about Rodgers getting the best out of them as well. With Hatate, I picked up on his interview when he said that was the first game. What was the wording he used? It was basically, that was the first game it kind of clicked for me, Brendan Rodgers said.
Yeah.
So in translation, that's him trying now. See, after watching that performance, I don't know if anyone else was the same out there, but I was like, absolutely brilliant. But Kamira, I want a word with you, Hatate. Where's that been? What you been up to? Because it just looked like he did step up a gear, and his goal was.
Oh, it was absolutely glorious to watch. I mean, you're talking there about the comments but Rodgers, and yeah, I read them with interest as well, because I think that he spoke about an intensity that we've not seen in Rio Hatate. But then when you look at how he was deployed by Ange, Ange didn't ask that of him. I mean, how can I say that? I'm not sitting in the dressing room. He never asked it of him because he was never dropped. So he played that way, he played in that style whereby the tracking back and the defensive nature of the game and this high intensity at all times wasn't there, because Ange knew that there might be two moments in a game where it's a Hollywood pass or it's a strike from distance like what we've seen there, that very few people in the team, if any, can produce those moments of magic. So he kept him in there. And I don't think for a moment that Rio Hatate was a luxury. For me, if he hadn't been injured last season, he was the player of the year. He was heading towards the player of the year. So what he was doing for me was enough. I know that some of the data guys were picking out some faults in his game, and it seemed ridiculous to the casual observer, Jerry, because you're watching a guy who's tearing it up, but some of the data analysts are looking at it saying, yeah, but there's these elements of his games that he's not doing right. But you ignore that. It doesn't matter because he's winning those games, right? And I think Rodgers has come in and said, well, see these elements of the game that maybe are being identified. I want to tweak them. I want to take you to another level. I want you to be a better player. And he's talking about the high intensity and the fact that he's actually sat down with Rio Hatate and spoke about it. And he says, if you want to go to the next level, this is how you're going to do it. He talks about him not being a young player, which is true, 25. He's the same age as Liam Scales. Both of those guys are rivals at Celtic, have come through two completely different kind of journeys, if you like. So you've got Rio Hatate, as we know, the Japanese setup in terms of youth football and development, Jerry, means that by the time they start playing senior, they're into their early 20s. So they're not making their debut at 17 and 18. And a wee bit like Liam Scales, James was explaining last week, that he played second-tier Irish football, and then he made the step up to top-tier Irish football, and then he makes a step up to Celtic. So should we be surprised that it's taken Liam Scales a wee while to adapt? Probably not. And with regards to Rio Hatate, he seemed to hit the ground running, to use that overused cliche. But he did. And then this season, we were all looking at it, like you say, Jerry, saying, where's Rio? It wasn't the same guy. And perhaps he's just adapting to Brendan Rodgers' style. When he plays that game, as he did there at the weekend, you've seen what Rio can do. And this is what I mean by the tagline. Rodgers can take somebody like Hatate to a higher level.
Yeah. And he was smiling again. I always look for that in a player. He looked like he was enjoying it. When you say that about Scales as well, coming up through the ranks the way he's done, it's like an old-fashioned way, or if you think of a band these days, that never happens. You go and play all these gigs at all these working men's clubs, getting bottles chucked at you and stuff until you finally make it. And you've earned it. That way you've kind of applied your trade. How many players do you think we've lost under the radar because we're going out to buy all these other players and we've not given the Scales a chance to get a run of the games? It's mad. It's like, but we're snobbed that way. I think we've become quite snobby when it comes to but there's a risk. There's always that risk.
Yeah.
But when it pays off, boy, does it taste sweet, eh? But
the thing is, Jerry, I think that there's been an absolute multitude of players who have fallen by the wayside, not just at Celtic, because it isn't an exact science. And often you look at any transfer window, every time we're in a transfer window, just use social media as a gauge here. People just want signings. It's like over the weekend, all the people that are going to the game, the 800 ticket buyers, they all just want announcements from me. Who else is playing for Celtic? They're demanding it. Give me names. And then every single
I'm one of them. Well, come on.
Imagine being on the Celtic Twitter admin, right? I'm not calling it X because it doesn't sound right. It doesn't roll off the tongue.
X.
I know. Imagine being the Celtic X admin. Sorry, it doesn't sound right. Everybody knows what I'm talking about, right?
Yep.
During the transfer window, Jerry, and then it's an ex-player's birthday, and they just announced Jerry Taylor is 40 today. Announce a signing. Nobody's interested in anything except a signing. Announce a new signing right now. So there's always that demand. There's always that demand.
I've done that before. It's like, oh, who have we got? And it's like, I don't care if it's Lustig's birthday today.
I know. To be fair, a lot of the stuff they put out, particularly the unique angle, I've said it before and I'll say it again, I love that kind of content. But it is true. You've just got this, it's like instant gratification now that everybody's got a smart device in their hand 24/7. It's not in their hand, it's in their pocket. If they're in their bed, it's at the side. It's always there within reaching distance, isn't it? Your mobile phone. And you just want that instant information. So Celtic, give me some information, and it's constant. And I think that that's not the reason why players don't get the opportunity. I'm just saying that there is always that give us a new name, give us a sexy signing and all this kind of stuff. And you might have an 18-year-old guy who would do a decent job coming through the ranks, or somebody who's maybe on the periphery of the squad like Liam Scales. And we want to talk a wee bit more about him. But Rio, before we move on to anybody else, I want to just talk about that goal for a moment. I've spoken about guys who can do something and they're the only person on the park who can do it. And that was one of those moments. And I think we've missed, this is jumping to the side a wee bit, we've missed a lot of that from Jota, because Jota gave us stuff and Jota gave us tricks and goals that nobody else could do. So it was refreshing to see. And as you say, it was great to see the Rio with a smile on his face as well.
Yeah. I mean, we've been trying to... everyone knows this for the past few games. We've been trying to break these teams down, trying it, and being patient. And like Jota had that moment where he can just unlock a defence and change a game, just like Hatate did. I thought, I keep watching it back, and I think we should all have a thought for the poor Kelly player, because he's done him good. He's done him good. Hatate, for me, if we can keep him in that form, especially if we can replicate it in the Champions League now, with that same kind of passion. He seemed more passionate at the weekend for me, and hopefully that'll he'll move that into the European games as well.
Yeah.
What was the initial question?
No, well, the thing is, Jerry, you make a good point, because obviously I was up at Celtic Park this morning. Excuse me. Every Monday morning up at the park. Obviously, we took a 2-week. Would you call it a sabbatical? We took a 2-week diversion over to James McGrory Park for obvious reasons. But we're back up at Paradise today, and when I was walking around, I did say that, going into this season, I didn't feel as though Rio had a bad Champions League campaign last time round. And I was looking forward to him, improving at that level. And I think so far he'll be disappointed with the 2 games. But I felt a bit sorry for him against Lazio, because within 12 minutes, he got a forearm to the face that was already hurting from the Motherwell assault. He had a big bruise on his face. So 2 on the bounce. And I do want to see him click into this form so that he can then translate that into Champions League form, because I think he's capable. I really do. I think so far in the Champions League, we've seen really, really high-level performances from Matt O'Reilly, another guy who's mentioned in tagline. Not yet from Hatate. But imagine them all clicking at once. This is what you're kind of hoping for, Jerry, at that level. You're hoping that McGregor does his thing. And what is that? Well, it means that we're not really talking about him. That's McGregor doing his thing. We don't really talk about him. It gets back to that level of consistency where he's putting in the performances. He is the guy that's he's in the engine room. He's making it tick. And at the beginning of the season, when he's not having that level of performance, it's so noticeable that he starts coming in for criticism. But when he's playing his usual game, we barely talk about him. That's Callum McGregor. And then the other 2 guys, Hatate and O'Reilly, if they both click at that level, that's when I think we do have a chance. I really do. And people might think you're absolutely crazy. We've just got Carter Vickers back in the defence. That's massive. We'll talk about that. We've got guys up top who can make a difference. Palmo scored, it was chopped off. Kyogo's broken his duck. We've seen it. So I think that it's key at this moment in time for us to click into action. And I think it is very good to see Rio Hatate. But I want to go back to Brendan Rodgers. And I'm not saying that the guy's got a magic wand But he has a knack, and he's shown it all through his career. He has a knack of being able to take individuals and just enhance their performance. The individual has the ability, Jerry, but Brendan seems to know how to tap into it. And that's one of his best, I think it's his best attributes. He was called over the weekend top class by a Scottish pundit. Well, we knew that already, didn't we?
Yeah. And do you know what it is for Brendan Rodgers? I think it's more his man management than his coaching, I reckon. Obviously, his coaching's second to none, like people say, but nobody's going to tell me that Matt O'Reilly's trying harder this season. It's not as if he's working harder in training. Brendan Rodgers has got in there. I think he's like some kind of almost hypnotist when it comes to the mindset. His positivity. He's like one of these life coaches, you know what I mean? And he always, every time that there's been a good result, he likes to tell us what he told the players at half-time as well. You know what I mean? He likes us to get into the mindset of him. He's almost kind of Darren Brown-like, I think.
Oh, so remember him? Remember Darren Brown? Not seen him in a long time. Aye.
He spooked me out. I never watched him. I'm creeped out with all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's subliminal. But I genuinely think, like Matt O'Reilly said about how his man management skills, about sitting next to him in the canteen and stuff, and I think a lot of players need that. It's starting to click like into place. We can all see it. Brendan Rodgers said, getting better every game. I think we started looking more positive when a certain player was sold. I think I trace it back to then. That's when it started to slowly start to click into place, and it felt like more like Brendan Rodgers' team. When it came to the signings, everything was really muddled. So some of them were maybe Brendan's, some of them were Angie's prepped from some 2 years ago with Tillio.
Yeah.
So gets to. I mean, look how to be this far ahead, knowing that we've been quite stop-start at times, is great. And how good are we going to be when we've got that settled squad, when Brendan's got some of his own players in? But definitely more excited now than we were about 3 weeks ago talking about.
Yeah, there were signs. There were signs, and I think going back, you'll see that we spoke about the fact that, you know, once it clicks, and it is clicking, you can see it happening individually in players. You can see Joe Hart, it clicked with him because Brendan said, right, we're not going to focus on you with the ball at your feet now. We just want you to be a goalie because we know that you're an international quality goalkeeper when you do that. He looked at the inverted fullbacks and thought, Taylor, you're a shadow of yourself playing a traditional fullback role. You're better going forward. Let's put you back into your inverted role. And lo and behold, he's performing better. He's looked at O'Reilly. He's turned him into the player that I think O'Reilly believed he could be. And it just takes a coach to be able to do that. What are you going to do, by the way, if Rodgers comes along and sits next to you on the coach on Sunday? What would you do if he sat down and tried to get into your state of mind?
My heart just started racing. I'd be like, Brendan, did you see the article I wrote about you? The blogger wrote about you on Acsom. I was on your side. Gives a cuddle.
100%. I would just sit and listen to him. I would just listen to him like a sponge.
Do you know what I'd ask him? Can you make it happen? I play hoopy for a match.
By the way, why not? Why not? I just don't suggest that it should be a lion. Because that went down like a lead balloon. How dare you?
I know.
Barry O'Sullivan, very happy with how the team is evolving. Think I'm becoming a fan of Brendan Ball. Is that what we call it? Brendan Ball? Let us know in the comments. B-Ball. Jungle Lion back in Dublin. Welcome back. How's the weather? Are you back to the rest of us returning to a kind of peely-wally shade of grey? Double Denim. Afternoon all. Thought that was our most solid performance of the season. Skills and Carter Vickers definitely our centre-back pair. And Hatate gets better game by game. Palmer looks a player. Need to find Hugo more. Right. You've led us into the Liam Scales discussion then. We already touched on him earlier on. And the fact that obviously he's broken into Stephen Kenny's squad. There's 2 games coming up against Greece and Gibraltar. I'd love to see him feature in those games as well, because I just think that, and this is where the disappointment probably comes in with Matt O'Reilly. I think that you want a player to keep the progression up in the game, right? What's the next challenge? All right, you're in the international squad. Let's see how you're able to adapt to that environment as a footballer. So Liam Scales has got that opportunity. Unfortunately, at the moment, Matt O'Reilly doesn't. I think it will come if he keeps putting in the performances. But Liam Scales, for me, he was called, Brendan Rodgers called him his biggest surprise of his coaching career. Now,
do you know that
is some accolade, by the way.
Do you know what that reminded me of? remember, like, if you'd say to your mum and dad when you were a kid, Mum, was that a mistake? And they were like, no, son, you were just a surprise.
Aye, just a surprise. Yeah, well, bearing in mind, Jerry, that I'm 11 months younger than my big brother. Yeah, that has crossed my mind from time to time. Anyway, Liam Scales. The big question I would ask, right? So we go into the transfer window, and we've been speaking about bringing in, up until the transfer window, bringing in a replacement for Starfelt. We've been talking about it all last season. And we felt as though we were ahead of the game because we brought this player in called Kobayashi, UK Kobayashi, who was handpicked and identified by Ange Postecoglou. And we're thinking, this is brilliant. We're bringing the guy in early enough. We're going to bed him in, give him a few games. Didn't quite work out for Kobayashi to the point that he was fit for the Scottish Cup final and we played a Wata instead of him in the Scottish Cup final against Inverness, Carly Thistle. So Kobayashi came in the door, right? All the while we've got Liam Scales sitting there in the background, out on loan at Aberdeen at that point. We then go out and we spend decent money on Nawrocki, and you're looking at him thinking, he's the replacement for Starfelt. If you're going to shell out a similar transfer fee on a player, as we did with Carl Starfelt, and then we bring in Lagerbielke, and you think, right, things aren't working out with Kobayashi, but we still need a backup, so we'll bring in Lagerbielke. He's probably played more games than he expected at this stage. And I'm going to ask the question, is Liam Scales the replacement for Starfelt? Because Kobayashi isn't, and Nawrocki's injured, so we don't know yet. Lagerbielke hasn't performed as well as Scales has. So is Scales, the guy who was in the building anyway, is he the replacement for Carl Starfelt?
Well, I can't see anyone taking his place. This is the way it went. It was like, right, okay, Starfelt's got Nawrocki, liking this guy, like, oh no, he's away, right, okay, Lagerbielke, oh no, I like this guy, oh no, he's good. Scales, get in. For me, with Scales, I think because of the story of it all, you know, kind of the romance of it all, I'm like, yeah, we've got Scales now and he's worked his way up. But who knows what's going to happen? Like, hopefully no injuries. You just never know. But right now, I can't see any reason to give it to someone else. I think it would be an absolute killer if you took that took the position off him. So with Carter Vickers getting some rust off him and with Scales playing the way they are, we've got a great centre-back pairing. Here's a question. Do you think Scales is better than Starfelt?
Right, that is a question. It's definitely a question. Yes. Let us know in the comments.
Definitely a question.
I'll give you my take on this. I just felt, right, see, for the 2 seasons, I was a Starfelt fan. I want to put that out first. I think that he came in for a lot of criticism, particularly in the early kind of stage of his Celtic career. And Ange Postecoglou stood up for him and spoke about the fact that, you know, this is a guy who's come in from Rubin Kazan, thrown right into a game, didn't have time to prepare for that game. And let's always remember about Starfelt that he was almost exclusively playing out of position for Celtic. He was on his weak side. Now, some people might think that in the modern game, you shouldn't have a weak side, but it's natural. He wasn't as good. He wasn't as strong on his left side. Yet he always played left side centre half alongside Carter Vickers. And you can't really argue with that because the partnership was so good over a 2-year period. So, yeah, that's one thing. He was playing slightly out of position, but it was still a great partnership. What you've got in Scales, and this is where I would say Scales has got the upper hand in this respect only. Someone else will need to tell me about his aerial duels and his tackles won and his passing accuracy, etc. And he's carrying the ball and all that, because that all comes into it. But in terms of playing on your favoured, most comfortable side, Liam Scales looks more comfortable in that position. I'm not saying he's better. I'm saying he looks more comfortable. So when the ball comes to him and he needs to play a first-time pass without thinking about it with his left foot, he does it. And he does it quite confidently, and it's just fluid and it's natural. I just felt that when Starfelt found himself in that position, it slowed down because he had to take a touch. And sometimes even when he's playing the ball with his left foot, I felt that it was almost quite laboured. Now, that's what I would say. In the fullness of time, we will see if the partnership, and I want to talk about the partnership that potentially he'll develop with Carter Vickers, we will see if it's going to be as good as Starfelt. Because I felt the strength of Starfelt was in the partnership. And it's no disrespect to him, but I just think the strength of that player was in the partnership. So we lose Starfelt, I'm thinking no matter who goes in there, it's just not going to be the same. Carter Vickers is a fantastic player. He's the rock of that Celtic defence. I think he showed that at the weekend. But it was a partnership I was worried about. And they were the two elements of the team that I felt were significantly weaker. Jota on the right and that central defensive partnership, even if Carter Vickers is playing, because his wingman's not there beside him. So that was a very roundabout way of not giving you an answer, Jerry. So let us know in the comments, what's your take on it? Do you think he's better?
Oh, I know nothing, mate. Here, listen. Can I remind you pre-season that I said there was two players that are going to take this league by storm this season? Can you remember what two players it was?
Did you say Scales?
Nope. Kobayashi and Kwon. I gave up. Do you know what I mean? Don't ask me.
You might have said it, but you didn't have to admit it. You didn't have to admit that because it's gone under the radar.
I'm still holding out for Kwon.
I mean, last week I did say that there's a group of players now. Last season there was also a group of players that if they don't get that loan move, they're stagnating. And it's not good for the player. It's not good for us because it's a waste of a wage. Listen, that's maybe the wrong terminology. Your wage isn't contributing to your team. So I just feel that if you've got half a dozen players of that ilk, let's say on 10 to 15 grand a week, it's a hell of a lot of an investment for something you're getting nothing back from. And we need to, as a football club, find a way to get them games. If they're not going to be in the team and they haven't secured that loan deal away, we've got to get them games, Jerry, because Kwon, we don't know how good he is or bad or indifferent he is because he's never kicked a ball yet competitively for Brendan Rodgers. You've got Kobayashi, who is so far out the kind of picture now. Like you said earlier, Scales was below him in the pecking order. Not now. Kobayashi's probably the final choice in the pecking order. And there's 8 centre-halves. So if you're the 8th choice, you're not getting a game. So we need to get these guys game time, Jerry. They need to find a way, even if it was a series of friendly games as such, true only in the terminology rather. I mean, it needs to still be a competitive game of football because otherwise you could be in a situation again like we were in the early part of the season where they're the only option and they've got to play and they'll be rusty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can we not get them to play St. Roch's every week?
Well, listen, right, the Reserve League, we've been through that. It's never coming back. I get it, because the clubs who were involved in it, the vast majority of them, didn't want to invest that money in the Reserve League. They just didn't want to do it. But if you look at the top or maybe the richest clubs in Scotland, and I'm going to hazard a guess that it's Celtic, Hibs, Hearts, Aberdeen, maybe Rangers, and those guys, I'm sure, would invest in something. Do you have it so that you can actually open up? Is there anything that would stop you from doing that? So there is a competitive edge to it. And then, you know, even if it was like the old League Cup sectional games, etc., so you're always playing a game. You know, you might get bored of playing the same, but at least you're playing a game. And I think they need to do that. Otherwise, you know, tap into under 23 teams in England, play other sides who need a game of football competitively somewhere in Europe, organise it. Yeah, it's going to cost a few quid. But if you need to then call on Kobayashi, Kwon, James McCarthy, last season, whoever was sitting on the sidelines, if you need to call upon the players, they're there and they're ready to play. So yeah, Kwon and Kobayashi, what were you thinking? David Boyle, here we go. I'll need to go back on that one, by the way. Hatate raised his game big the weekend. He now needs to stop losing the ball close to the goal for Europe. It looks like he's had a change in mindset for the better. Brendan Rodgers is all about mindset. He's all about state of mind. He can tap into a player's psyche and he's able to influence it. And I think that if he can't influence it, then he just lets the player go their own way, if you like, you know, let them go. I remember, actually, believe it or not, today is 10 years since the release of my first book, The Quality Street Gang. Today, of all days.
Happy anniversary, mate.
I know. My 10th. It's been a decade since that book came out. And the reason I bring it up isn't to promote it, because you can't buy it anywhere. I think there's 3 copies in my box through there that we take to live events. Other than that, it's not available. But the reason I said it is one of the first interviews, if not the first interview, was Danny McGrain that I did for that book, because I thought to myself, I'll just aim kind of like as high as possible. And I'll go for the world-class fullback at Danny McGrain. And he said to me that when he worked under Jock Stein, what he noticed as a player is that Stein would tell you, he would tell you, this is what I expect of you. He might tell you a second time, but if he's got to tell you a third time, he's wasting his time. And then you had guys like Danny McGrain who took it on board. They were sponges. Kenny Dalglish, John Gorman, Vic Davidson, George Conley, Lou McCarry. The list is virtually endless. Paul Wilson. They guys obviously tapped into what Jock was saying. There was plenty who didn't, Jerry, and they didn't make the grade. So I think Brendan Rodgers is a bit like that, in that if he thinks he's got a lot to work with and the person is willing to work with him, they'll improve. They will improve that player. I'm looking forward to seeing Carter Vickers playing a number of games with Liam Scales, because it was Liam Carrigan who made the point the other day that although Scales has been playing out his skin, two things. He's been playing with different centre-halves, right? So he's had Nat Phillips to play alongside, and he's had Lagerbielke to play alongside as well, and Iwata for spells. Against Feyenoord, I think Iwata went back to centre-half. So he's been playing with other centre-halves. Imagine what Liam Scales can do with a regular partner in the central defensive area, Jerry. But not just that, Carter Vickers. Because let's be honest, a brilliant centre-half can make his partner up their levels. I think we've seen it with Van Dijk, and we've seen it, I think, previously with Carter Vickers. And that, for me, if you look at that as being a partnership over the next few months, that could improve Scales even higher onto another level.
Yeah. I've got another analogy for this one. So basically, Liam Scales, the plane's been crashing, and Liam Scales, the co-pilot, and he doesn't have a pilot, and he's been keeping the plane going just enough to stop crashing. Then all of a sudden, the pilot walks back in and says, "Don't worry, son, I've got it for you now. You just do what I tell you." He's going to play even better if he's got that wise head beside him.
What's the pilot been up to, though? Because I'm thinking airplane. What's the pilot? What's Carter Vickers been up to? Why has he not been sitting in the seat?
I had airplane in my head as well, an inflatable Carter Vickers. By the way, see, I know we're going off on a tangent here. Still to this day, it's the funniest film ever made. It's the funniest script ever written. It still stands. I even showed it to my 13-year-old son. He was in the bits. It'll never be beaten. Anyway, so Carter Vickers is brilliant, and having him beside Scales is going to make him brilliant and all. Even more brilliant. Even
more brilliant. You're right. Kevin Mullen, welcome to the show. If you want to make a comment on our YouTube stream, all you need to do is subscribe to the channel. When you do that, you can hit the notification bell as well, and it'll tell you every single time a new item of Celtic Acsom content is on the channel. What's coming up? We've got a Wander Around Paradise tonight. Normally drops about 6:15. And we've also got the live stream of the St. Roch's game on Sunday. It was a sellout within 48 hours. The only way you can get a ticket is if you're playing, Jerry? And that's the only way you can get into the actual stadium. There's a few player sponsorships, actually. There are a few player sponsorships become available in the last couple of weeks. If you have a business or a charity initiative and you want to sponsor a player to increase the awareness of that, get in touch through DM or email at pauljohndykes@gmail.com. And I'll tell you what you get in return for that, but you definitely would get into the game. Carter Vickers, we'll be talking about him in a wee second. Kevin Millen says, afternoon, Acsom. Brilliant to see Rio back to his best. Hopefully does the business in the Champions League now. I think he's capable. I think he showed us last season that he's capable. It's just unfortunate that this time round, he's not been in the best of form. Now, Carter Vickers, for me, I think that we've seen something that was so uncharacteristic of him on Wednesday night, Jerry. He actually is human. He made a mistake. He is human. And then you're watching him again at the weekend. There was a couple of things I wanted to point out. There was 2 interceptions in the space of a minute, I think, by Carter Vickers. And then about 90 seconds later, Liam Scales done the exact same. And then there was a moment about 10 minutes later where the ball is lofted in, Carter Vickers wins the header. They win the second ball, it's lofted in, Scales wins the header. And so I can see the elements of that partnership. And I can also see what Carter Vickers brings to the table, because he threw himself at a ball in the 6-yard box and stopped it from going in. Again, how often have we seen that? And I think now, if we can just keep him fit, because for 2 years he was fit, if we can keep him fit, then we can start building again, because it's almost as if we've just been putting a plaster on the defensive situation at the moment. Nat Phillips isn't going to get a look in on this form, by the way. He'll be sent back to Liverpool in January if it goes the way it's going just now. But how important do you think Carter Vickers is to not only our domestic campaign, but maybe trying to get something and replenish something from the Champions League?
He's huge for us. absolutely huge. Best central defender since Van Dijk. And I was going to say something on that as well. Carter Vickers. Oh, I lost myself.
Well, you're talking about... I'm just going to put this out here.
Oh, aye, that's what it is. I remember now. Sorry, mate. Aye, he's going to be huge, but do you think sometimes we put too much pressure on him? We see him as like a Superman. Do you think when Brendan's about to bring him on in the middle of a Champions League game, he's going, hold on, wait a minute here. Like, because it's a lot of pressure to put on anyone. He's still a human being as well, but who knows? He maybe knows how good he is. But when he did come on, I was worried because everyone's bodies are similar. If you've not been playing in a while, you're going to have that rust. But like you say, he's human. But what he doesn't do is do it again the following week. He doesn't let it get into his head. Anytime he has in the past, which is very, very rare, made a mistake, he comes back the next game better. That's the mentality he's got. I don't think he's fazed by too much.
No, I don't think he's fazed. And you know, when we signed him, we brought him in. He was a player who had a number of loan deals, Carter Vickers, to the point where he had never really had any roots at a football club. And Celtic offered him that. And I remember, you know, the conversations going into that campaign were, which one of Jota and Carter Vickers will we be able to keep? And we kept them both. And I go back to that because that was huge. That was a huge bit of business bringing those two guys in permanently. And we didn't have that this season. And that was disappointing because, you know, I know we didn't have the ready-made try before you buy scenario with another couple of players, Jerry, but it was that level of player that you wanted to bring in, you know, and it's not just about the money, but obviously the money shows the kind of level that they're playing at, the club, the league that they're playing at, the experience that they've got. And that was a disappointment because I think that if you add another two guys of that quality, Jota, Carter Vickers, into the squad we have at the moment, then it does take you, it elevates you, particularly on the European stage.
Yeah.
My Mansis, what is that you're drinking? What is that? It looks like beer.
That's a beer. Yeah. That's one of those blonde beers, by the looks of things.
A blonde beer. All right.
Blonde beer.
Nice. I hope it was good. International games will improve skills vastly. And I think it will. It's just another one of these things. You look at the progression of a footballer, that there's still, regardless of how modern football has changed, there is still that ambition for the player to become the international player. And I thought it almost went full circle for the likes of Tony Ralston when he finally got that cap under Stevie Clark. And I think Liam Scales is the same as well. And I would love to see, when Stephen Welsh comes back, a kind of re-emergence of Stephen Welsh as a Celtic player, because he's got undoubted ability. Paul DB, Paul, Jerry, I just want you both to know, good luck. We're all counting on you. Now, right, here we go, Jerry.
Twice now.
Jerry, it's the last minute. It's 2 each. You're on the park, you're a goalie. St. Roch's get a penalty kick. Talk me through it. What do you do? Are you one of these guys like Bruce Grobler? Are you going to try and put them off? I mean, how do you deal with it?
Well, I've got, first off, Paul DB's quoting Airplane for anyone that didn't get that at first. And he'll need to post it again because it happens twice. Listen, I've played this in my head. I don't know how long I'm going to get. If I'm going to get 5 minutes, whatever, right? But I've thought, what if it's a draw at the end and I'm on and it goes to a penalty shootout? However, penalties are my thing. I've got a thing where I used to, players do a certain thing if they're going a certain way that folk haven't picked up on, but I've got a way that I know which way usually they're going to put the ball.
All right.
So I stand strong, I stand firm, and I give them as many pelters as I can before they're about to step up. I was known for being I'm a gob on the pitch.
Would you be intimidated if the Rock fans are behind you, Jerry? Would you be all right with that?
Mate, it would be like, feed me it. Do you know what I mean? Inject me with all that. I thrive on it. See, if I'm going on there, I'm the kind of person, if I'm getting abuse, then I'm a show off. You know what I mean? So the more noise they're making at me, the better. And we're all there for a good laugh anyway. But I've opened myself up for it. I'll be getting pelters all day from my own team as well.
Probably, aye, from the dugout. Ryan Taylor, any relation? I'm not sure. Scales deserves a chance. Written off by the fans and been our best player last few weeks. He's been one of the best players for sure. Another guy I would throw into that mix is Matt O'Reilly. I think he was absolutely brilliant against Lazio, actually. You know, you sometimes forget how good a performance he had because of the disappointment of the game, that euphoric heartbreak that you spoke about. I also think it was quality against Kilmarnock, but we're all focusing on Rio Hatate's performance, and rightly so. But he's been so consistent this season. And, if he continues in that vein for the entire season, he's going to be up there in terms of Player of the Year accolades and all this kind of stuff. And we talk about turnarounds of Liam Scales. What a turnaround in the football career of Matt O'Reilly. We signed him 2 Januaries ago, and he was playing third-tier English football, Jenny. We pick him up for little more than £1 million. And look at that performance against Lazio. And then I think the next part of his development is Brendan Rodgers coming to the club, taking his game to another level. After that, it's the international step up, getting into that Danish squad. After that, who knows what this boy can achieve? I think the sky's the limit with players like Matt O'Reilly. His performances have been superb this season.
I've run out of superlatives for him. He's absolutely brilliant. I'd give him Player of the Year now. If he keeps this going, it could be one of the best seasons we've seen for a Celtic player in a long time. And that's saying something, because we've some amazing players. He's settled. Do you know the amount of people I speak to that say that they've met his family or his grandparents up at the game and how amazing they are and how lovely they are? And I love that. It's like that family feel at a family club. And they're always there, apparently. He's exciting to watch. Mm-hmm. He's stop building him up on here and all. Just tell everyone he's rubbish, so they're going to come in for him. But he's great, and enjoy him while we've got him. It's one of those. I've said it before. Enjoy him while we've got him.
Yeah, you've got to. And Brendan Rodgers spoke about the fact that there was that bid that came in, £10 million from Leeds United, and he said to the board that we can't lose another one. We just can't lose another one. The £10 million in terms of a Scottish club knocking back a £10 million bid. Again, because Celtic have been so successful both on the park and off it, Jerry, you look at that and you scoff. You scoff at £10 million because you think, no chance. His ceiling is so much higher. But a Scottish football club knocking back £10 million bid is huge. It is absolutely huge. That £10 million, what that could do for any club in Scotland is unbelievable. But because Celtic have obviously the financial foundations of a well-run club, and we want to build on that by keeping, if possible, your best players at the club. Yeah, we already lost Jota, who was in that category. We also lost Starfelt, who was a very important cog in the first team. But if you were to have lost O'Reilly in that same window, then it would have been devastating. It would have been devastating. And it would have been devastating, I think, for Rodgers as well. So I'm delighted that we've kept him. We've got him under a new deal. He's firing on all cylinders. And I think the next part of that development will be the international call-up. Big shout out to the Celtic women yesterday, by the way. Another win. It's their 10th domestic on the bounce win. Unbelievable.
How many goals have they scored?
They're scoring for fun. That's six against Motherwell at the weekend.
Superb effort.
Brilliant.
I need to get to one of the games, mate. I keep saying it, but it's just trying to find the time.
I was going to ask you about that because it was during, I think, the pandemic. And there was a few members of the Acsom team, Natasha Meikle, Colin Watt. There's a few teams who were really, a few of the Acsom contributors who were very, very supportive of the Celtic women's team. And they basically asked us to cover some games, which we started doing it. And, you know, the game, even in that short period of time, has grown to such an extent that last season we were breaking attendance records. The club were pushing it as well, obviously. Amy Gallagher scores a couple. She is, I'm going to say, the great-granddaughter. Let me get this right. Yeah, the great-granddaughter of Patsy Gallagher, ex-Celtic player. Tyree Burchell, who scored a goal as well, is the daughter of Mark Burchell.
Really?
Yes, she is a daughter. So I believe that Mark and Tyree are the first men's team and women's team family, if you like, father and daughter, I believe.
I love Mark Burchell. I love them.
Yeah. Kit Loversky scores another couple and Chloe Craig with the other goal. But I was going to ask you, are you into the women's game yet? Have you gone to the game? Have you been watching it?
I've not been at any games. I'm not going to lie about that one. I've seen a couple of the games and I've seen a lot of the highlights, but I want to go and support because this is my thing now. Get out, going to as many Celtic games as I can, watching as many, because we've got to support the lassies. I mean, they're working hard enough for us, so we've got to get out there and see. Fran Alonso's doing a great job.
Yes. No, he absolutely is.
Contract. We better get him tied down as well.
Yeah, and the thing with him as well, he talks brilliantly about the club, but also his principles and his philosophy of football. And you can see that there's something that's actually coming from the very top of the football department, and it goes right through Celtic, regardless of which team are representing the club. So yes, fantastic. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think that you need to get more games played in Glasgow, and I think also that they need to look at putting women's games on the season ticket just to get people actually to the games, and then they can decide whether or not they're going to be fans of that particular team. Greg Taylor, your namesake, Jerry, he has come in for quite a bit of criticism, and in actual fact, after the Lazio game, I was still reading, mainly on the socials, some comments coming through. He's not good enough for Europe. He's not good enough for Europe. And he follows that up with a brilliant performance, I felt, against Kilmarnock. It showed me that the inverted fullbacks definitely are working better now that they've returned to the fray. And Taylor was a real attacking force, him and Johnson. They've been given license to attack, and it's working a treat. Of course, he gets his goal as well. How impressed were you with Greg Taylor?
Fantastic. He's getting better every game. I'm not into that. All right, we're a little bit critical, but I think we've been so critical of him. Now we've got to give him his dues, because from where he was in the first few games of the season, I'd lost hope, and I'd said it on there, and I hate saying it. I hoped I was wrong. With the Lazio game, he got caught wrong side of the ball a couple of times, but he did some great things as well. And Maeda, by the way, in the Lazio game. See, watching him live, unreal. So with Taylor, he's going to get better and better. It's a confidence thing. He looks like the kind of player, if he hasn't had a couple of good games, it gets to him, and he needs folk to kind of G him up. He looks like a bit sensitive. So he says he watches Gossip Girl. That's one of his favourite programmes. So it shows you he's quite sensitive. So, which is great to see. So I think he's got it out of his system now, and like I say, he's going to get better every game. And it's good having your namesake, seeing people saying Taylor's great online instead of the opposite. It's nice.
I'll stand by my view that I do still think that the left-back position and the goalkeeper position and the centre-forward position, we need to strengthen. Now, that's not me saying we need to get rid of Taylor, Hart or Kyogo. I wouldn't dare. That's sacrilege to say that about Kyogo. But we do need to strengthen. We absolutely do need to strengthen. And I think that we have tried bringing in Bernabe, of course, bringing in Benji Siegrist, bringing in O. We have tried to really strengthen these areas. But I'm not writing O off, by the way, but I don't think the other two I mentioned are going to work for Celtic, Siegrist or Bernabe. So I think going into the next transfer window, these are areas that I would expect us to identify and sign players in. What does that do for Greg Taylor? Well, it probably makes him up his game, because at the moment he's still not being challenged. Bernabe wasn't on the bench at the weekend. Turnbull wasn't on the bench. Neither was Lagerbielke. I felt quite interesting enough. Yeah, they weren't on the bench. So he's not being pushed for that position. I mean, I think Brendan's looking at the scenario there and thinking, right, if Taylor has to go off, we'll move Scales over to left back. We'll bring on one of the centre halves. Maybe Phillips would come on, even Awata if you were struggling. So, yeah, brilliant game, I felt. Good performance against his former club. And I want to talk about Kyogo. Breaks his duck. You were at the game. What a superb goal. A great team goal. Maeda plays the ball into O'Reilly, cushions it brilliantly. The move's already happened. Kyogo's on the move. Great finish. Breaks the Champions League duck. However, I don't think under Brendan he's going to score 30 goals a season. I think we play a different way, Jerry. The goals are going to be spread out. And I think Kyogo, he's a first pick every single week. I'm feeling a wee bit sorry for O, because O's not getting minutes. How do we accommodate him?
It's a really tricky one, isn't it? Because you can't be taking Kyogo off when he's, for all that, like you say, he's not going to get as many goals, but the goals he gets are pretty much all the time the important ones, aren't they? He is a big game player. You can't expect a player like O to kind of start setting the header alight if he's getting 15 minutes every game. It's not even enough to get warmed up, I don't think, at times. Giving him a few runs of games. I'm hoping it might even be as late as after January. If we really get a lead going here, I'm not getting complacent. If we could get a good lead and we can start getting some of these players some game time, that would be fantastic. But when you've got Kyogo in your team, I mean, he's already saw off Giakoumakis, who I think's probably one of the best strikers Celtic's had in years as well. And he went. How long's O going to sit about? Who knows? Who knows? But like I said this the other week, you can keep Kyogo going for 89 minutes and he's not touched the ball, and you still don't care because you know that he's just got it in him. See, when we scored that goal against Lazio, I turned to my mate and went, "Did we just do that in the Champions League?" It was slick. It was great. And what a reaction. It was almost a relief for him, because that's what everyone says. You can't start comparing him to the L word until he starts scoring in the Champions League. And that's hopefully the first of a few. Now, obviously, my prediction, which I need to stop doing them, Paul John, right? My prediction that we're going to win all of our home Champions League games. So we've lost the first one. But
it just means we need to win in Italy. It's fine.
That's easy, man. Easy. But
absolutely,
both of those games, I still was proud of the team. Both of those games. For the heartbreak, I mean, hey, there's a lot to talk about in those two games. We'll not forget them, that's for sure.
No, you're right. And I think against Feyenoord, you could almost write it off because of the circumstances of the two Reds. But then you're looking at how we were able to deal with the adversity of that and not crumble and not capitulate, because you know what? Who knows what's going to happen in the group stages, and we might be looking at goal difference at the end of it. And that was vital for me, only losing 2-0 under the circumstances away from home against the pot 1 team. So I've got to say thank you, every single one of you, for getting involved there. It's always brilliant to start the week off with a Wandering Paradise, followed by the Acsom Bulletin with Jerry Taylor. If you want to see more of Jerry, somehow get a ticket for St. Roch's, or tune into our live stream on Sunday for the big game. It's just days away, Jerry. I don't want you going out there and pulling a muscle. You better take care of yourself for the rest of this week.
My son this week, we're going to I've been training, mate, so my son's going to take me to work on my goal kicks this week, break on the new Fitbit bits and all that. I'm just really looking forward to the occasion, and congratulations to everyone that's put it all together. I want to say that for a great event. The work that you've done, mate, behind the scenes is commendable. And do you know something? I think this is going to be an event that people are going to be speaking about for years to come. I really do.
I think the Rock deserves it. You're talking about breaking in a new pair of boots. Did you ever wear, see this, by the way, this just might be my dad winding me up. Did you ever wear your boots in the bath? New pair of boots, wear them in the bath before you...
Oh, to soften them?
Yeah. You ever do that?
I think your dad's at it.
It worked.
But did it work?
Aye, it worked.
Well, I was a keeper. I didn't really care about my boots as much as the rest of them. But
you don't want to get a blister. You don't want to get a blister, do you? So you used to do that, and then it used to be like you would scrunch up a newspaper when they were a thing, and then you would absolutely soak that in water, and then really, really soak it, and then push them into the boot, and it would stretch the leather and.
Wait, my papa did that, not with my football boots. I remember him doing the newspaper and all that, and them.
It works a treat. Yeah, but you're going to ask me my first pair of boots.
Your first ones that you remember going now? I had some real bad ones, like some Gola for the charity shop and that. But when I started taking my football series, I remember one Christmas opening these boots and going, "Wow!" Do you remember your first pair?
I do. But by the way, interestingly enough, with Gola, they're kind of retro and they're acceptable now. But back in the day, you didn't want to be wearing Gola trainers or football boots. No. I had a pair, right? Tell me if you remember this as a brand, Quasar. You remember Quasar? Big Q. No. It was a big Q on the boot. Gary Lineker used to wear them. Quasar.
Right.
Yeah, he had a boot deal. Quasar. And they were a thing for a couple of years, and I bought a pair of Quasars. They were my first. Oh,
I like that. Mine was, do you remember? So Ryan Giggs, the red Reeboks.
I do. I remember them.
Was it Reebok? Because at the same time, you had the Puma Kings that were out, remember? Mm-hmm. And it was the Reebok Puma Kings. So I remember getting them, cutting about and putting my collar up as if I was Cantona as a goalkeeper.
Brilliant.
So it was like having good boots like that on a player like me was like putting hubcaps on a wheelie bin.
The thing is, Jerry, it's come full circle with the boots, right? So they went from there to all the colours being introduced to the point where no one wore traditional black boots. No one was wearing them for a long time. Some of the ones I went through were Umbro Wishbone. They had this wishbone on the sole. It was like the Adidas Torsion. You remember it? These are all kind of retro now. But Quasar, I had 2 pair of Quasar. I eventually got a pair of Adidas Predator, the originals, which I've still got. They're knackered, but I've still got them. There
was a documentary on that, how they were made. Never remember that?
Yeah.
Everyone thought they were brilliant at free kicks when they got it, but we weren't. I got the Predator goalkeeper gloves for the game.
So when you punch it, does it swerve out? I remember the documentary because it was Craig Johnston. He used to play for Liverpool and Middlesbrough. He was an Australian. Australian, and he was a surfer. And he noticed, the surfing shoes were kind of rubber, and that's where he started developing this idea that you could put rubber on a football boot. But they were quite chunky back then. I remember. They're a lot better now and light and all the rest of it. But just to tie this back into Celtic before we finish, John Collins scored plenty of free kicks wearing Adidas Predators, right? And also Craig Johnston, when he was at Middlesbrough, said that his mentor was Bobby Murdoch, the Lisbon Lion, who at that time had obviously gone to Middlesbrough to play. So Craig Johnston, the Predator, the guy who invented Adidas Predators, his mentor was indeed the great Bobby Murdoch. There you go. We've tied it right back into Celtic.
Fantastic. Well done. Good job with that one there, mate.
I've seen a picture of your boots. I'm not going to release any information about them, but I've seen a picture of your football boots.
What did you think?
Yeah, kind of thing I would choose. Yep. Aye. I like it. You've got to go mod. You've got to go mod with these boots. Absolutely. But you're not going to be wearing bowling shoes. I will say that. Thank you, everybody, for getting involved in the chat. It's always an absolute pleasure. If you want to get involved in anything else that Acsom's up to, follow us on our socials. Click on all the links underneath. We're up for a couple of awards in Liverpool. It'd be lovely to win them. We're going down anyway, regardless. We're going to have a great night down in Liverpool in November. We're up for 2 awards. You can click on the link below if you fancy giving us a wee vote. Thank you, everybody, for getting involved. Thank you, Jerry Taylor, for joining us on a Celtic